And so here we are once again. Hi guys, Mr. Jaeger here, and welcome to the last day in the IAE Expo. Well, technically not the last day. We do still have the best in show day, but this is the last day I'll be covering for the IAE because, well, there's not a lot really that happens on the last day. Last day at least. But today we come to basically say, well, first of all, it's RSI day, so we get to look at the RSI ships, which, considering the amount of hype going around at the moment, at the time of this recording, the Galaxy is getting quite a lot of attention. And also, it's a new ship, so obviously, well, it's a new ship that's yet to be, it's still in concept, but the ship, they're starting the hype train on that particular one, so hopefully things will be quite good for it. But today is also a bit of a sad day because we're gonna have to say goodbye to the really nicely designed IAE event. I'm not gonna lie, I am quite sad to see this place go because it was so nice and it was so pleasant. And, just I feel really kind of sad to see this place go because I love the aesthetics and we're not getting them again, which is a real shame. So I'm gonna have to really soak up the environment here. Most definitely soak up the environment. Still. All said and done, this is, we're here, we're going to celebrate today. So today is RSI Day, the day, the oldest company in Star Citizen history lore, the guys who started it all and were the first guys to really charge out into the verse. And their ships, in terms of Star Citizen game history, also are also quite famous because obviously they are the ships, you know, they were the first massive multi-crew ships that graced the game with their presence and sort of gave us the initial hope, the initial training to sort of go, yeah, it's doable, we can do this. So today we're going to be having our usual affair of running around talking about various ships, a lot of which, luckily, we don't have to go running around into, and quite fortuitously as well, we get to see some of the sexiest ships. Also, for some reason, there's two of the same ships here, so yeah, not entirely sure why they did that, but probably they ran out of ships at the last hurdle. It's like, shit, we got to put the Mantis twice. But still, regardless of that, we have our fair share of things to go through. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, we enter and begin our day by looking at the largest ships currently in the RSI fleet. I am, of course, talking about the Constellation series. This one in particular, the Andromeda, which is considered the bog standard edition, though to be fair, I wouldn't really consider this bog standard. The Constellation series is a multi-crew, well, multi-role, multi-crew ship with the intention of kind of being, I don't really know, it's kind of one of those ships that I think at the time it was just, oh, look at this multi-role thing, and that was pretty much it. There wasn't really much else thought and design putting into it. Like, again, the design of these ships is fairly old. It's kind of like an exploration vessel with some pretty nice armament, not gonna lie. And it does have its fair share of weapons. I mean, the Andromeda is the most armed of all three of the vessels. I mean, it's got, for the pilot... Good music. So yes, the the Constellation Andromeda does have a pretty substantial weaponry. It's got some CF-447 Rhinos, which... Are they on gimbaled? They are! Jesus Christ. So you can get size 5 fixed weapons, if you wanted to, on this thing. But it's currently got size 4 or gimbaled Rhinos, which are no small thing to look at. Like, the Rhinos are definitely something that you want to have on a ship. And hey, look, that's the Parasite ship from Kruger Industries, which for some reason they've decided to put with a P-72 rather than the P-52, which is much more preferable, but hey-ho. So yes, the Andromeda is also famous for having its own parasitic snub aircraft being attached to the rear of the ship, which is really cool. So I'm just going to go into the ship now and hop into via the elevator call. And as mentioned, this ship's been in the game, like this ship's been in Star Citizen since the beginning. Like this was before even the PU was invented, was released. The Does this go up? I'm assuming this goes up. There we go. So, this particular ship has been, as I said, it's been in the game. Holy shit. Well, they finally did the lighting properly now. Normally it's like pitch black in here. Now it's actually decent lighting, and it looks really nice. But no, so the design of the ship has been pretty, you know, it's been the same in practically forever, more or less, sadly. But yeah, no, the design looks pretty cool. You've got, as I said, multi-cruise ships. You've got your co-pilot stations here. You've got two turrets, two manned turrets, one upper, one lower, both utilizing two CF-227 size 2 badges, which are pretty nice. And the main pilot seat being in the center gets a pretty decent view, though unfortunately due to the well, they have updated it though. They have at least updated it. So unfortunately, you do have a fair amount of struts inside this ship, and I personally would have pushed the chair slightly further forwards to give the pilot a bit more of a view inside the system rather than what we've got right now, because you're quite far back in the viewpoint. But it isn't like atrocious. It's not like the worst kind of view you have in the thing. But obviously, you are a big ship, so 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But no, they've recently in Star Citizen have updated the Constellation series in terms of its components, or at least in terms of its piloting stuff. So that is new. This is definitely new with its interactable. Yeah, but there's a lot more interactivity with the cockpit as well. So that's something. I'm quite happy to see that. We need more of that. But yeah, no, that's a good thing, I would say. Last time I was in this ship was in the last, I want to say IAE. But I also think I probably may have run into this vessel in Invictus Flight Week. But as per usual, the ship does come with its futurist. It does actually have a proper shower that you need to withdraw the shitter out on. So there you go. You have a shower, an actual shower. There's also a table thing here, which sadly you can't activate until you sit down. Previously you can actually activate this thing and then sat down, but there you go. And then, of course, you have the whole 4 bedrooms as a pod. And then if you go here, you're introduced to the cargo bay, which obviously you've got the open and close section. And inside here, you can contain a couple of rovers plus, of course, the whatever kind of cargo you've decided to put into it. And then as we make our way further to the back, we're reintroduced to some components, an airlock, and finally the parasite craft at the back. Now, this thing was not a new, like this particular design, you know, for a very long time, the Connie basically had this as more of a glorified trophy than anything else because, you know, docking didn't work. But now that docking does work, you can actually do the whole, if the shit hits the fan and you need someone to go, you know, to planet side to survive, or if you feel that you want to use the snub fighter for a little bit of a, like, you don't really want to land a big ship on the planet, so you land the small one, which makes it a bit more of a subtler approach, you can take the snub craft, which is a really cool thing. Now, you may also have noticed there's rather a large amount of missiles in here, and this thing is packing heat. Quite a lot of heat. So we've got, as I said, it's got the rhinos, it's got the badgers, and now it's got, I'm gonna go down the racks. It's got, one rack has, so 6, 12, 24, 30, oh yeah, so 30 Strike Force size 2 missiles, because why not? And then we've got 7, 14, 20, 21, 28, yeah, 28 size 1 missiles in addition. So that's 64 missiles, I want to say. My math is not that great, I'll be honest with you. My mental math, at least. I'd have to get a calculator. But yeah, that's a lot of missiles. That's a lot of missiles. Like, just that's a lot of missiles. So, yeah. Yeah. That is a lot of missiles. And if any fucker wants to try and piss you around with that, then yeah, you're going to get a bit of a rough day. Though, I'm going to say also the Freelancer does have, like, I'm not, like, don't get me wrong, I like the Freelancer, why do I keep saying the Freelancer? The Constellation is a really good looking ship, and it does have its multiple, and I mean multiple variants, with its most recent variant, which I believe is one of you. Oh, they didn't. Oh, they bloody did. They fucking... They bloody... They changed the... they didn't give it that version of the cockpit, which the Aquila does have, which as every other version has the pike nose at the front, which I don't like, because the pike nose you can't see as well out of, whereas this edition you actually can see a lot better out of. But no, so there are, of course, multiple variants of the Connie. You've got the Phoenix edition, which is a luxury transport vessel. You've got the Aquila version, which is basically a scientific research version with one of the turrets removed and a unique glass domey effect, which I would argue is vast. This particular cockpit is much better. In fact, I'll quickly hop into this thing to prove the point, just to try and sort of showcase the difference between the two, because it is better, and I kind of wish that this had the pike nose and everything else didn't, because this would be so much better than the other versions. But hey ho. So let's quickly hop into this particular version just to prove the point. Because if there's anything I will do, if there's one thing I like to do, is prove a point emphatically, because I'm not petty at all. So as mentioned, in this version of the ship, you can see this is a much better array of things, because instead of having a pike nose which feels like it goes everywhere, you actually feel like you can see into the front of it. Now there are still a shitload of different struts and everything, but in comparison to the pike nose, it is so much easier to see through and so much more, you know, pleasant to as a pilot to sort of look to fly with. And I'm hoping that in the future you'll be able to do things such as like customize how the ship looks. So for example, maybe you don't like the pike nose at the front of the Andromeda, so you can choose to have the square, you know, the glass dome, right, or the, you know, the rounded dome versus the pike nose. And it also might throw off your opponent's aim, which is pretty good. But as said, this is the scientific edition, so less weapons, less armament, but is more designed to be helpful for like research or reconnaissance. This is the Constellation Phoenix, which is designed for rich assholes and snobs, and, you know, people who want to ferry the said rich assholes and snobs. So they have a much more luxurious accommodation, even utilizing a bloody hot tub in the back there. And this edition, the Constellation Taurus, or Constellation, took fucking years to get to here, which is basically a cargo version of the ship. Less armament, but a giant 150 SCUs worth of cargo capacity inside the ship. So there you go, a very impressive looking thing. There's a cargo bay little thingy at the back. So there you go, big old open there. And as I said, this is basically the dedicated cargo transport ship. Why this took so long to come out, I don't know. But still, it was a very long time before the ship finally got released, and then got completely ignored because, well, everyone sees a Connie, they know what it's like, they know what they're expecting. Now, one last thing I'll mention on the Connies, which, depending on your mindset, and depending on whether or not you like these vessels, you may be pissed off by, or you might find hilarious. But to be fair, I'm not that impressed when it comes to facing Connies, because, well, their weapons are definitely dangerous, and in the hands of a, you know, dangerous pilot, you know, you can, you know, they'll be extremely dangerous. They are dangerous in the hands of a good pilot, and can be lethal if you don't take them too seriously. But there is this one particular critical weakness that the ship has: its engines. If you have any kind of brain cell, you will have undoubtedly noticed all of the firepower that the pilot has is on the engines. So all you need to do to basically neuter the pilot's abilities to defend the ship is to basically shoot the engines off. Now, the turrets can and will shoot at you, but the thing is, it's a lot harder for them to shoot through the back of the ship if you've knocked the engines out and the ship is currently flying, you know, is drifting in any particular direction that the engines were pushing it in. So if you are a fan of blowing things up and wanting to watch them fly in a silly fashion, go up against a Connie. I swear to God, it's the funniest thing you'll do all day. So we've gone and talked a lot about the Constellation series. Now let's talk about two kind of opposites in that regard. One ship which is unfortunately kind of just sitting there, not really doing anything, and kind of just embarrassing itself at points. And one is the X-Wing. Let's talk about the Mantis first, because I want to gush over the X-Wing in a second. So, the Mantis. Now, I'm ripping into it a bit unfairly, to be honest with you, but still, it's kind of an embarrassment. I wouldn't say an embarrassment, but it's kind of a ship that kind of at first caused a lot of panic amongst the Star Citizen community, and then kind of immediately died when we realized it wasn't actually a problem. So this is basically a unique ship from RSI designed to do one thing only: quantum interdiction. Now, the quantum interdiction system is basically where you hook someone in, or you interdict someone whilst they're flying around in the verse trying to, you know, get from A to B. And you, being the no-good skullduggery asshole, if you're a pirate, if you're a good guy, you're the gem of the verse. Basically, this ship is designed to snatch people whilst they're trying to get from A to B. And your job is to, this particular ship, its sole purpose is to basically facilitate that option. Now, I'm going to deploy the QED. Right, where is it? QED on. There we go. So the QED is basically this device at the back, and then when you wish to activate the QED, it charges up a bit like an EMP pulse, and then after the charge is at 100%, it releases a giant spherical orb that in the area around, well, basically in the area that you're located, which is often, obviously, a popular trade route or a quantum lane route, you would basically cause a sort of net to snag anyone who is in quantum and basically force them out of quantum into the verse, into, you know, and force them to stay in the same area that you're in. Now, the problem with this particular thing is twofold. The first problem is that due to the high levels of energy that you need to, to generate this massive thing, your vessel will be at low power for a few minutes whilst it attempts to fix itself after distributing that much, or discharging that much energy. And the second problem is that if you're not doing it by the law, if you're illegally doing this, not only is the person who you've just quantum interdicted gonna want to kill you, he's gonna get rewarded for doing so. And as such, this vessel needs an escort in order to survive. The very, very pathetic weapons that you're attached with, I'm not even going to bother telling you, because you're not going to need them. Because even after you recover the power, this thing flies like a brick. It is completely useless in combat. It is primarily designed to interdict, and that's it. Everyone else, basically, if you want to give the person who doesn't, the shit guy at the job, and you want to give him something that even he is incapable of fucking up, well, that would be a risk, but still, I think this particular thing only requires him to do one thing, which is then quantum interdict. And then after that, he can just sit on his plodder and twizzle his thumbs whilst you do all the work. So, unless you've got an especially lazy worker, or if you've got someone who especially, is a shit person at their job and you just don't want them to do anything more advanced than this, then the Mantis is for you, and most certainly has the capacity and the ability to completely ruin someone's day, or for all of 2 seconds until they turn around and blow you out of the verse if you don't have any cover. And the reason why I said this particular thing kicked off the community was that when this ship initially came out, there were a lot of players who were worried that there were going to be a whole host of trolls who were going to basically hop into the game and cause a massive upset by, causing loads of quantum interdictions, loads of fights, ruining trade and all that jazz. And the community basically, the community kicked off and were like, we're not going to have this. This is stupid. If the player, a player's going to try and fucking, quantum interdict everywhere they go, so it's going to be a massive problem. And then when the ship came out, nothing happened, because the thing is, you have to be extremely lucky to be able to get at that sort of thing. So no. No. This vessel, sadly, has not really gained too much of its reputation. I mean, you can quantum interdict. It's not like you can't quantum interdict, but it's so difficult because you have to try and predict when someone is likely to be quantum interdicting. You just can't do it unless you spend forever just waiting for one person to come along and then you quantum interdict them. But then you'd need some friends to be very patient whilst you spend about 5, 10, 20 attempts charging the QED and then releasing it again until the next time. So, yeah. Anyway, on to the X-Wing. Now, I know the ship is called Scorpius, but it's really a conspiracy theory because this is the X-Wing. The X-Wing is, of course, designed by RSI in this particular universe. Admittedly, you may be wondering why this doesn't look like the T-65 X-Wing variant from the galaxy far, far away, but in this particular universe, that beautiful angelic design has not been graced into this universe as yet. But some genius decided in this particular verse that the X-Wing needs to look like this. Now, obviously, the X-Wing being such a famous fighter in some universes, you may feel that this thing may not do its legendary title justice. But I can assure you, it most certainly does make this, it does justify its reputation, because the X-Wing has not only got the capacity to have, one gunner with the four, the S-foils in attack position and missiles, it's got its own turret, which which also can switch positions from being both above and shooting at the front, giving that extra level of firepower. It also can cover the rear of the ship, which, as much as we love the T-65 and T-70 variant of the X-Wing, neither vessels could do that. So Star Citizen's version of the X-Wing is glorious. In terms of what weapons you can utilize, well, the X-Wing is equipped with a size 3 Vari punch. So I've not actually seen many of these in verse, so I'll need to have a look. It's gimbaled fucking brilliant. So it can utilize size 3 fixed weapons, which obviously when I get this thing, again, in the last episode I mentioned that there's a thing going on at the moment, which means I can't get this vessel, but trust me, next year I'm getting it. And yes, so you can get size 3 fixed weapons, but at the moment you've got the size 2 gimbaled CF227 Badgers, which, fair enough. The 22 Badgers is a respectable weapon, and you've got 4 of them, so, as I said, you're an X-Wing. And it also utilizes, the X-Wing also utilizes, 12. Yes, 12. Is it 8? Feels like more. But yes, 12 Tempest 2 missiles, which is very, very impressive. Not quite the proton torpedoes that we're expecting, but still a notable effort from the X-Wing, and it's fun. And as mentioned, it's got a turret at the back, which is utilizing 4 size 3 C33F Panthers. So depending on the fixed weapons in the front will be eventually fixed and all that jazz, you can match the firepower of the turrets with the firepower of the rear, which is pretty cool. And this is the beautiful X-Wing's canopy. Oh, I really, really, really want one. I want it so bad, but I can't afford it. Oh, I want this ship so badly. There's this vessel looks so cool, and it's the X-Wing. Oh my god, oh my god, this ship is amazing, and I love it, and I want it so badly, but I can't afford it because. Not now, but soon, but not now. So basically, yes. So this is can't speak. Sorry, X-Wing fever. It does occasionally occur. If you're a fan of Star Wars and you see the X-Wing in something like this game, your language does get affected quite dramatically. And it is glorious. I mean, when the ship came out, like when they announced it in concept, it was pretty much CIG realized that the X-Wing is quite a notable aircraft in most sci-fi communities, and they tried to play down the fact that this was an X-Wing. So again, it's a conspiracy theory that they call it the Scorpius. It's not called the Scorpius. It's the T-55 X-Wing. And the reason why they sort of did this down is because obviously when they announced the ship, they kept saying things like the unique properties and design of this craft, the unique properties and design of the weapons, the unique design of the weapons. They often utilize the term the unique design. when in actuality, what they were sending was a coded message to say, this is the fucking X-Wing and you will buy it because it's the X-Wing. The X-Wing does not care about your feelings, your wallet, or your family. It is the X-Wing. You buy the X-Wing because the X-Wing is love, the X-Wing is life. God bless the X-Wing. So, here we are in the second room, and for some reason we're seeing the Mantis again, which is kind of intriguing since they're trying to promote a ship that hardly has any use twice. You'd think they'd put the X-Wing in here, but I suppose considering how good these vessels are, they kind of need to... they kind of be like, oh, let's look towards the Auroras rather than the Mantis in the room. But if there was the X-Wing in the room, nobody would look at the Auroras, so it's understandable. I mean, the X-Wing is a god. But no, so the Aurora, what exactly is the Aurora? Well, the Aurora is kind of both a historical landmark and the entrance in which most players will start their journeys, though to be fair, since the Drake Interplanetary Cutter has entered into the fray, that may no longer be quite the story. But I will respect this particular ship's landmark in years, because this vessel is most definitely a legend inside the community. Where it be the one that I had? And the one I still technically have. I think that's the bare bones basic bitch. So where's the MR? You'd think with where the sign is, you'd probably have like the original, but still. No, so the Aurora is basically, in Star Citizen lore terms, the first ship that RSI was able to utilize a quantum engine to successfully jump and move, go beyond the distance, if you will, which allowed them for first almost faster than light travel. There she is, the Aurora MR. So this particular vessel is based off the same chassis and design of the Aurora that allowed, that RSI basically started utilizing when it came to space travel. And in terms of Star Citizen gameplay, it's been the one of the other choices inside Star Citizen starter ships for quite some time. This was the starter ship that I started out all those years ago. When my friend Mr. White decided to, that is actually his name. He basically told me about this game called Star Citizen. It's like, hey, you get to fly in some spaceships, and you get to muck around and stuff. And for a early birthday present, the guy he very kindly bought me a package, and yeah, my history and my wallet are crying ever since. So what exactly is unique about this ship? Well, the Aurora is a very bare-bones basic bitch. You've only got a couple of size 1s. There's like extra mounting points that you can add weapons onto, as you can see here, but you need to specifically buy them. You also have a tiny missile somewhere. The size 1 missiles, I think. Though to be fair, I don't know if this is the version that does come with a missile. Though I remember there was one that did. I think it might be the more snazzy one. Though this one kind of looks like a missile. Or is it just lights? Could be just lights, but still. So this thing has a very bare-bones basic option. So let's open the side. You can open and operate things on the side of the ship, as you can see here. And it does come with a bed. It's very, very cramped, but it does come with a bed. So if you are used to sleeping in cramped conditions, or you're not too mindful about where you're sleeping, it is possible to do so. And then if you want to enter into the pilot seat, you'll have to kind of squeeze your way in. So again, you might not be able to fit into certain ships in the near future. But this does come with a very good cockpit. It does pass the MFD test. As you can see here, all MFDs are visible within the first segment. It also has a pretty solid view. Sadly, a lot of struts, but still very useful, because this is one of the few ships that you can look down whilst landing, which for some new players out there, I'm not so mindful. I've grown used to flying and not needing to look down, but for some players, the extra immersion of looking down whilst your ship gets closer to the ground, and for once isn't not looking straight up as the ship comes towards the ground at high speeds, allows them to actually adjust and modify what kind of values their ship has before it finally touches down, which is really nice. And for anyone who's new to Star Citizen, they haven't really gotten into the whole vibe of like taking off from, they're not wanting to spend a shitload of money on it, but they are intrigued enough to get the starter package. And for years, this was the other option to the Mustang Alpha, which, to be honest with you, this was really the only option in my eye, because while the Mustang is good for certain combat, it did very much limit your things. Whereas this vessel, while you couldn't really do anything in terms of cargo boxes, still had something, had a bed, which was better than most, and also had the ability to, look, pretty nice and also be quite a practical thing. It also did have its own little cargo thing on the back here, which I didn't notice until years later. But you can actually attach cargo to this little segment here, which allows you to convey some small levels of packaging. But since the cutter has arrived, which has pretty much superseded this vessel, we may have to. This vessel may not get much, if any, love anymore, except for collectors and fans of the small thing, or if they may decide to reduce the price of the Aurora. You never know. But still, in comparison to ships like the cutter, which is well deserving of its record, though then again I'm gonna put a little caveat here. We don't know what the price is going to be for the cutter and after the Expo, so it may be that the cutter is a little bit more expensive, which is as a result means that this vessel may still yet retain its options as the other choice. But if the cutter remains at its price for any reasonable amount of time, it will dominate the verse with its viability. And to be fair, the other versions of the ship aren't really a lot to speak of, I'll be brutally honest. I mean, you've got the missile, there's the missile edition. This is the more militaristic edition with its different weapons and everything, which is the LN. But really, it kind of plays host to a whole thing. So you've basically got the snazzier edition somewhere over there with the bare bones basic, you've got the military, and then you've got like the slightly jigged up but not as fancy kind of thing. But again, there's not really a lot to say about the Aurora, except it's the starter ship. It's the vessel that most, if not all players, before the cutter's release, so before 2022's IAE, it was the ship that most, if not all players, started from and upgraded, from. Because, and it was the ship that's, it's near and dear to my heart. I will never say anything bad too much about the Aurora, except that it is just the ship that you start with, and it's the one thing that helps you start on the journey that takes you to great and wonderful things, like the X-Wing, which, everyone should love and dear, because that is what the X-Wing is for. So we make our way towards the holodeck, and we are greeted with the sight of a vehicle that I feel, well, is near and dear, and also quite, well, to be fair, it's been quite an old gem, and I'm kind of wondering as to whether or not we're going to see any other variants of this. This is, of course, the Ursa Rover. This is a very small, I would say fire team sized transport vessel, which is designed to basically carry a set of fire team element of troops into the battlefield and out again. You've got 6 crew in total, with a driver and a gunner, effectively, because he'll be the one who'll be manning the turrets at the top, or the driver, though, to be fair, I think the driver... the driver doesn't get access to the turrets, but the gunner does, and he basically gets access to a couple of size 1 Panther repeaters, as you can see here, and basically they can sort of do dakka whilst they try and fly around the verse, which is pretty cool. They can do dakka whilst they're trying to get into combat, which is pretty cool. But as I said, these particular vessels, you don't see any other versions of them. Like, for example, the ballista chassis has got the Centurion, which is the machine gun version of anti-air, and they've got the Spartan edition as well. Tumbrel with their Cyclone has a fuckload of versions. The Grey Cat has its own versions with the PTV, the other sort of things. There are plenty of ground vehicles out there with their own distinctive versions, and yet these vessels still don't really have anything unique about them, or at least any unique versions, which I'm a little bit sad to see, because obviously it's quite a nice looking vehicle, and I think if you can give it like a special edition, maybe, I don't know, civilian transporter, or it's not civilian transporter, civilian minor version, maybe you could have like a... Christ, I don't know, a racing version, just something to add some variety to the Ursa Rovers, because I feel kind of sad for them. They don't really do a lot at the moment, which is a bit of a shame. And as mentioned, because of the ships like the Spartan being a thing, or ground vehicles like the Spartan being a thing, there's a lot less viability to utilizing the Rovers, with the exception of speed. But again, outside of clan-related activities, we're still straying into that territory of you don't really have a use in the game, which again... it's kind of sad. But we make our way once again, and now for the last time in our series, to the holodecks, where we get to see the future of various starships. And this time, we start with another Connie? No. This is the Perseus. This is a glorious vessel with two size 7. Oh, they've removed a gun. No, they haven't. 2 size 7 Dakas. Yes, rather glorious firepower, as you can see. And there's the entranceway. No, but this is a glorious vessel. To be fair, those don't look like size 7s. They look like fucking size 9 to 10s. But this vessel is basically a gunboat designed to say fuck you to larger vessels. And the Star Destroyer style design to it looks absolutely gorgeous. I love this ship. It looks so good. I say I love this ship. I love the design of the ship. It looks so nice. You've got rear turrets manning the thing. You've got the combat. It's just... mwah. It's RSI in its sexiest design philosophy, and I really cannot wait till we can see these things in verse and buggering over various vessels, because oh my god, it would be amazing. And I'm genuinely over the moon at how much this looks nice, especially it looks so cool with the guns at the front. Yes, so yes, the Perseus. Multi-crew vessel, obviously, designed to be a little gunboat slash frigate, and basically its role is to say fuck you to anything that is somewhat larger than it. Like if it's an Idris or Javelin or something along those lines, not meant to be, you know, complete destruction, but, you know, big gun, maneuverable, hopefully, and definitely more of a fun to fly. And we go from one capital ship to yes, the Galaxy, the big boy, the smaller boy of the Perseus, and the vessel that many a player is going to be super pumped to talk about. And for some reason, some people thought this ship would be available in-game as soon as it's been released. And it's like, dude, they only just announced it, or it was only just leaked. So this particular ship is quite unique because it's basically, not only is it being advertised as, you know, a new big ship from RSI to sort of grace itself inside the Star Citizen universe, but also it's being touted because of its modularity. The version being currently advertised for sales are the refinery, the cargo transporting, and there's a cargo, there's a refinery, there's the transport, which is like dedicated transport. Oh god, Emperor, what is it? Hospital. There we go. My brain is falling apart. Yes, no, there's basically, you've got the hospital, the refinery, and the cargo bay transportation edition. All of these modular things are designed in a way that allows the player who owns these editions to be able to swap these things in and out of his craft like willy-nilly, should they own the version, obviously. And this vessel is designed, hopefully, when this vessel is, you know, eventually released, we'll be able to see what this really beautiful looking ship, and it is absolutely beautiful. I do love the design of this thing. I wish the fucking developers would give us a fucking stand so we can see a little bit above the damn thing, but there looks to be the bridge. I assume that's the bridge. Yeah, that looks like the bridge. Yeah, that's the bridge. Tucked away in the middle there, but still looks really nice. And again, I do love RSI's angular designs with their craft. It definitely looks and feels like a proper space, you know, capital style spaceship, even though it's not a capital ship. That's more like the Perseus, and the Perseus is going to be bigger, which is wonderful. So yeah, no, big fan of this ship. I'm not probably going to get it anytime soon, and I think, also RSI, Invictus Flight Week is probably going to be selling this thing, so that might be an opportunity for me to pick it up then, but still, it looks really, really nice, and probably closer to release, it's probably going to increase in price, because obviously, you know, initial release, and then obviously initial release of concept, and then of course going later on in the time, but still, really nice looking ship, and depending on what your kind of mindset you're going to be utilizing, the multi-crew, multi-option style gameplay loops will make this thing be a standout in comparison to its counterparts, which could mean that the future of Starship development at the moment is going to lean very heavily towards, can this ship do more than one thing? Which, depending on your mindset, is either really good or really bad. And as we make our way across, we are introduced to, of course, the Polaris, the beautiful, beautiful mother of all of the other vessels. The Polaris is basically a frigate, dedicated combat frigate with the torpedo launchers and missile launchers. It's, as I said, it's the proper ship. It's sadly been in grey box for quite some time, and I fear that she's not going to be released for another few years yet. But still, an absolute gem of a vessel with multiple defensive turrets, multiple missile, well, I said torpedo-style launchers, missile-style launchers, and really, if you're a clan, this is possibly the peaked style ship that you'll be utilizing inside Star Citizen, unless of course you get lucky and find the ability to have a javelin on side. But again, depending on the mindset, certain clans probably don't want to risk those big boys unless there's a really damn good reason for it. So the Polaris may be one of those vessels that's just about cheap enough for you to be able to utilize in combat and act as a kind of capital to all of your other vessels. Or if you are that stupidly stonking rich company, you may find yourself sitting inside one of these things as just kind of a standard. Or if you're part of the UEE, which again, if you're stonking rich, kind of makes sense. But no, this vessel looks absolutely wondrous, and I'm really excited to when we finally do get these things in verse, because then we can actually see that what they can do, and hopefully be able to kick some alien ass when the Vandals show up, because I'm sure we're going to get a visit from them at some point in the near future. And finally, we have a new ship. Ship I've not seen before. What's this? Oh, the Apollo Triage. So this is what you'll look like in game. Very interesting. So the Apollo Triage is one of two variants of medical ships. The Apollo Medevac, I believe, is the more militaristic one with a bit more defense and a bit more weapons on hand, whereas the Apollo Triage is the hospital ship, which is designed to provide it's not only designed to provide, a means to either help revive players, bring them back from critical states, heal for obvious reasons. It's an ability for players to basically act as a, mobile hospital inside any particular sector, and maybe, depending on how the game goes, maybe allow players to utilize, to follow the medicinal life path of, well, basically being a doctor inside Star Citizen. I'm not entirely sure how that would work, considering I'm sure many a player out there doesn't really fancy the concept of being a playing doctor. But then again, there may be just that kind of player who likes the concept of helping others whilst also having missions, inside this ship to be able to either evacuate from war zones, maybe help out people stuck in a particularly rough part of the galaxy, maybe even help out after a Vandal attack, that sort of thing. That would be a pretty cool concept, I'm not going to lie. But still, the Triage and Medevac are ships that have been in the works for so long now. But still, it looks cool, and I think once we get a little bit more physical form into the game, maybe even a preview in terms of gameplay, maybe even in terms of gameplay preview, this could be a really good concept ship, or the ship to launch out the medical treatment job role, where instead of having to just help out certain players, maybe you may find that there's jobs where you have to go to, damage zones, accident sites, revive people, keep them stable, take them to hospital, all sorts of things. But you never know, Sadly, though, what we do know is that this is the end of our time in IAE. 2952 is over, and we have covered all of the days with all the respective crafts. Now, as mentioned, there is the end day, which is basically a few days afterwards, which leads to, I think, the 30th or 28th, which is basically celebrating the best of X amount of years, where people can sort of vote if they want to have their favorite ships and all that jazz. But to be fair, there's not a lot we can really cover, because it's basically all the ships we've looked at already, and yeah, it's not worth covering because we've already covered the ships, so it's just me going around saying, hey, look, it's the thing I talked about a previous episode a while ago. So I will love and leave you all here. So it's been a really good event. I'm going to miss the aesthetics of this place without a doubt. I really will. I fucking love the red and everything. Red and this colouring is... I love it. Love it, love it, love it. And I'm really going to be sad to see it go. It was a really good event. I fucking loved the aesthetics, as mentioned. I'm going to say that again, because I just... Red and white and... Oof. It's a really good day. Really good event. And I obviously am very much excited for the future, in more ways than one. most certainly in more ways than one. Like, I can tell you now, there's a little hint. I'm looking at something which will affect the channel, very much so. And once it's all set up, I'll be making an episode to specially just demonstrate this particular thing. Anywho, that's as big a hint as I probably ever going to give, and if you're a fan of the channel, you probably already guessed it. So all I ask is don't spoil it for the others. That's all I'll say. Is if anyone does watch this series and you know what I'm talking about, please don't spoil it for the rest of them. I want to make this as a surprise as anyone else. So thank you once again for watching. If you like this kind of content, let me know in the comment section down below, clicking on the like button, and of course subscribing to the channel for more. And if you like any of the ships that I've been talking about inside this game, or inside Star Citizen, you know, in any of these particular things, I do love. That's actually quite a nice image. If you do like this kind of event, and I like talking about ships, because, you know, in Star Citizen, I fucking love it when we can talk about ships in this game, because it does look really cool. And this works. You know, the amount of like incredible vessels that this game has, the amount of things we've seen, and of course the new stuff that's come in this year has definitely been really exciting. So I'm looking forward to seeing more. I'm very much looking forward to seeing more, and I hope to catch you there when we do find it. So I will see you in the next one. This is Mr. Jaeger, signing out.